Hello, dear friends. Today, I would like to introduce Kristoffer Jonasson, advisor for Ecumenism and Interreligious Dialogue in Linz, Austria. He has a master's degree in ecumenical theology and a BA in theology and religion. Kristoffer grew up with atheist parents, nominally Lutheran. Later in his 20s, joined a Pentecostal church and began studying at the Bible seminary with the intention of becoming a pastor. That path changed when he converted to the Catholic Church. Dear Kristoffer, thank you so much for the opportunity to learn from you.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Is everything I've introduced about you accurate?
Yes, very much so. My study background, my Lutheran or atheistic parents, everything's correct. Yeah, you nailed it.
My channel was created under the rubric of keeping the faith. Many experts note that the main challenge facing religious communities today is global secularization and a departure from religion. Your life story, however, suggests otherwise. Born into a largely secular family, you became a believer. How and why did this happen?
Yeah, by the grace of God, I have to say. No, I was like my parents, very atheistic for a long time. I remember having a remnant of a faith as a child. I used to listen to the Bible and the Bible stories, especially the Old Testament, with Noah and all of that. But as I grew up, I became more like my parents and I lost my faith. And after I don't know how much or how long, I think in my early 20s, I started to question the narratives. Is everything that I see just by chance? Do I not have a purpose here? Um, and that really led me into a philosophical spiral where I started questioning the whole narrative that I had been fed from my parents, from school, and yeah, um, when I was about 23 or 24, I couldn't believe it anymore, and I had decided that I need to become I need to follow God. Not Christian. I didn't know what, all religions have God, so I first said I need to find God. And I started to study all religions. Um, Slowly, I spiraled towards, or I went towards the Abrahamic religions, and in the end, I was kind of selecting between Judaism actually and Christianity, and I ended up on Christianity. I'm guessing now because it was more familiar to me, it was present around me and stuff in my culture. But really, what fascinated me so much was the cross of Christ. That was the thing always that brought me home. And um, yeah, to my parents as well. Uh, I never told them specifically that I needed to become Christian, but they found out somehow, and they got very mad at me, very very mad. My mom, she called my pastor and threatened him actually to report him to the police if they baptized me, and my dad, he said, if you get baptized, you're not welcome back anymore. You can't come into my home. I was living with him at the time. I had just come home from the army actually, and didn't have a place of my own. Um, so yeah, I mean, being 20, 24 years old, being threatened to be kicked out of your home, it's scary. But I went through with it anyway, and on the day, I really hope that my dad would have noticed that I went out with one set of clothes and came back with another because, in baptism you get it fully immersed in the water and everything's wet. But he didn't notice, thank God, he didn't notice that I had a bag with wet clothes when I came home either. So all went good, and that's kind of how I came into the faith, and I must praise God for that. These thoughts, this idea, this direction, it comes from somewhere. I don't think that I would have come up with it by myself, and we can see today as well that God is pushing thousands of young people back towards religion, yeah, right? So we had 20,000 baptisms in France. We had several thousands in America. We had more baptisms than in 20 years in Sweden. We have so many baptisms everywhere now. God is really stirring up religion in the new generations, and yeah, thank God that He is taking us back into this direction again towards Him.
As I understand correctly, you wanted to become a pastor, a spiritual mentor for believers, but you chose a path of a learned theologian. Can you tell me a little bit how that happened and why?
Yeah, yes, I did. I thought that becoming a pastor would fulfill all my desires, actually, and all my dreams that I had. I wanted to be, after my conversion, spend all my waking time with God, and of course, a pastor was the person who did that, I thought, and I saw them as really cool, really popular people, and it's really fascinating writing sermons and explaining the faith to people. That was, the thing that I wanted to do, but after my Bible study years, I slowly, because we had a lot of contact with pastors, of course, in Bible study, and you get to know the life of the church a bit better, and you started to see how much critique and hardship a pastor actually has, and I wasn't ready for that, I don't think, um, and it really pulled me off my game. Um, And when I was done with Bible college, I still didn't have any other idea. What could I do? So I kept pursuing that dream, um, but more in a general direction. I just started studying theology and not seminary ministry in that way, because you can go both routes in Sweden. Every priest of the Swedish church has to study theology with a bachelor's and a master's for 5 years. It's not specifically seminary. So I started doing that, and it was really then, when studying theology, that I realized I don't have to become a pastor to work with this. I can do theology, and that would be equally good. Um, one of the reasons, though, why I hesitated for so long was my family and my friends, because everybody around me kept telling me, why? There is no jobs as a theologian. How will you make money as a theologian? What are you gonna do? And I didn't know, but I knew I had to try. I had to pursue this because this is my dream. This is what I really want to do. And after being done with my bachelor's, my family being very skeptical about that, and I decided, yeah, now I'm going to ecumenical theology because that's what I really want to do. It's changed more into that direction. And people got even more confused. But what? You're gonna specialize even more? There's no jobs as a theologian. How many jobs is there? And that was really my stumbling block for the road. But I kept doing it. I followed my heart, I want to say. I really followed what I think that God put down in my heart is that I need to go this direction. And yeah, at the end, it paid out. Now I'm working as a ecumenical theologian, actually, and I'm loving it. So I don't regret not being a pastor. Sometimes I think about it, but it's not my way. So yeah, I'm really, that's really my path and how I ended up here.
If you do feel the presence of God in your life.
Quite a lot. Actually, I have a very, me and my wife are trying to have a very Catholic household, so there's a lot of prayer and common faith activities with each other. We did a little pilgrimage with us and the kids yesterday. Stuff like that. And every day you go out, you have a goal of being spiritual, and you meet God. And of course, in my children, I really can't forget them. Teach them the life of with God, seeing how they grow and develop, and just understanding what miracles they are, and this pure childlike innocence in them. You cannot think about anything else than God in that. Um, just how innocent they are and how pure their hearts are in prayer. Um, my oldest son, he said, I think it was before Easter, um, he really doesn't understand why God needs to die, um, but I trust him. with no background. It's really I don't know why, but I trust him. Um, and of course, in my work, in my daily life as a theologian, I'm very blessed to work with my faith every day, to meet exciting people of different religions, different Christian denominations, and talk about what faith really is, what's dividing us, what's uniting us. Um, my work, I sum it up as the Franciscans do, or the Benedictines, I'm sorry, ora et labora, which is Latin for work and pray. So my work is one big prayer, pretty much. And of course, I don't forget to pray while working either. So the presence of God, yes, in almost everything that I do in my life, I can feel it, and I feel so blessed in many ways. Being at this state because I can very clearly remember a time in my life where I didn't feel the presence of God and thought I would probably never.
I think it's very important, and thank you for mentioning this, that faith is not only limited to the house of prayer, but faith is something we have all the time in our lives, and this kind of a day-to-day faith that we don't have to only practice on, for example, for Jewish people, Shabbat or holidays is
Mhm.
something that you practice every day and that you experience every day. As you know, I was born in Belarus, where there is a folk festival called Divan Kupala, celebrated on the night between July 6th and July 7th, when the day is longest and the night shortest. The holiday's history dates back to the pre-Christian times when the Slavs worshipped the forces of nature. It contains both pagan and Christian elements. You were born in Sweden, where St. Lucy's Day is celebrated on December 13th, when the nights are long and days are short, and where Lucy's illuminate the Swedish winter with her light. Could you tell a little bit more about the festival? Do you celebrate St. Lucy's in your family? How do you define the holiday? Is it a national holiday, a folk holiday, a religious one?
Yeah. Um, Ivan Kupala reminds me as well about Midsummer in Sweden. It's the same type of holiday, I would think, where we also celebrate on the longest day of the year, um, and with the pagan roots, you know, dancing around the tree and having all these things. But yeah, Saint Lucy, great question. I would say it's a little bit of everything. It's not a national holiday in the sense that you're off work or anything, but still, a lot of workplaces, school, for etc., invite you in the morning to sit down and watch the nationally broadcasted television program of St. Lucy. And that, yeah, it can take the whole morning sometimes. We'll just come together, sit on the couch, you eat the traditional Swedish Lucia bread or Lucia buns, as they're better known, and you drink some hot, like warm wine. I forget the name in English, but Glühwein is the German version for it. I think everybody heard about that. We call it Glögg in Swedish. Um, and you know, without being a national holiday, I think it's actually better for the holiday because you come together, you know, as friends, as family, and watch this. And it's really something everybody's looking forward to. And when I was in school, that day, the whole morning was just taking up to going into the school, yeah, whatever you had more space, and watch the Lucia performance, and a girl was chosen mostly from the older girls, and it was beautiful. And as a kid as well, I remember every town had Lucia, and there was Lucia castings. You know, the posters were set up, and they were looking for the most beautiful girl. Of course, you had to be able to sing as well, very important. And they had auditions and all that. And on the night, that's the evening then, the 13th of December, she would come up mostly in the town square and sing, and there would be lights and candles and everything. And I heard as well from a girl once that everybody knew that that would be being Lucia is something not very profitable for girls or not very good because you have wax in your hair everywhere from the wax candles, and it takes months to get this wax out. But still, every girl would pretty much apply for it. Every girl would try to become Lucia, and it really says something about the tradition. But um, over the years, as the country has become more secular, we have lost that. Some towns, some bigger towns, I think, still has the Lucia celebration public. Many towns gave it up because they thought it would be offensive to other religions, which I think it's a bad argument. Other religions are very welcome to enjoy this day with us. And what it does for us as a culture as well. We can't forget that. It's, as you mentioned, it's dark, it's cold, it's miserable, and here comes this beautiful girl dressed in white with candles in her hair, lighting up the day. Kids would get gingerbread, and everybody would just be happy. The tradition going back even further than that to the 70s, the oldest girl in every house would wake up her family dressed as Lucia. She had made breakfast and sang happy songs for them, like just this environment in this darkness helps us a lot to deal with the dark. And I think for every religion in Sweden, they experience the same thing. And of course they would rejoice in the light as well. Um, but no, sadly, we have lost Lucia, and the only real place you find her now is in the baking. The families come together to bake the buns, to watch the TV in the morning. Um, and some schools, of course, they have it as well. Um, and I try my best to do the same for my family, to come together and bake, to watch it in the morning or later, because now you can, record it and watch it later. Um, so that my kids also can experience this, even though they don't understand a word of what's being said, and it doesn't matter. They just enjoy seeing this beautiful, the landscapes and the lights and the darkness. It's always filmed in the very late evening, the day before or in the morning, where it's the very darkest in Sweden. So you can really see the sense of it, as to say.
I also think that is a very good argument that you said that about celebrating the holiday in like the town square or just making it public could be a very good start for more people who are not necessarily involved in interfaith dialogue, but also don't know where to start. And I think that would be a very good place to start. And there is a story I want to relate to ecumenism. An Orthodox Christian greets a neighbor with the words, Christ is risen, to which the neighbor, a Catholic, jokingly replies, and ours did a week ago. Could you explain to our viewers what ecumenism is?
Yeah, sure. Um, so just let's to give a little background to that for the people that don't really know. Um, Christianity is divided into three major branches. We have the Catholic, the Orthodox, and the Protestants. And from these three, the Catholic branch is the biggest, with around about 1.3 million members and a lot of diversity in itself. But what unites us is that we are all having the Pope as our head and authority. Then you have the Orthodox churches. I They are not in communion with each other like the Catholics are, but I still bunch them together now with all the Eastern Orthodox, so I think Russia, Belarus, Belgium, Romania, and then you have what you call the Oriental Orthodox, where you have, for example, the Armenians, the Egyptians, the Coptic Church, and the Ethiopians, and so on and so forth. They're about 300 million people altogether, but they're not united in that sense. But still, they are very similar in tradition, and that's why you can say that they're kind of the same, uh, which I know that they will hate when they hear, but that's the truth. And you have the Protestants, which has very hard to number how many they are exactly, and how they're divided. You have the high churches like the Lutherans, the Anglicans, and you have low churches like the Calvinists, for example, and also you have non-denominationals going into Pentecostals and Baptists and free churches and stuff like that. So, but they're around, I would say, 1 billion members as well. Uh, we managed over the years to separate from each other, starting in the late, I think, 300s, 400s with the Oriental Orthodox. Um, then in the year 1045, 1054, I'm sorry, with the Eastern Orthodox and the Catholic Church, and the last schism was about 1500 years ago with the Protestants. And this schism, we always treated it in a very unique and special way. Like you see that schism in not schism, but different opinion, for example, as you can say, in Judaism is very different from what it is in Christianity. There you have many different opinions. You have the Reformed, you have the more moderate liberal, you have the ultra Orthodox and everything, but they still accept each other as Jews, and there will be no, discussion there. It's just a difference of opinion. In Christianity, we don't have this commonality to go back on. The only thing we have is the teachings, the dogma, as we call them. And when somebody goes off track and goes towards another dogma, the normal response for almost 1900 years was to alienate them, to push them out. They're not real Christians anymore. They believe something erroneous. Keep away from them. And we would do this by excommunications. We would do this by breaking communion with them, as it's called more personally, um, and not have any contact with them. But after, I would say, yeah, the beginning of the 20th century or in the end of the 19th century, uh, people, mostly Protestants, mostly Anglicans, actually started to question, hey, why are we doing this? Is this really necessary? Is there no other civilized way that we can sit down, have a dialogue, have a discussion about why we are so separated? Because there is so much that are uniting us, and then there really is. I mean, when mainline Protestants, Orthodox Catholics, we have around 90% commonality. It's just 10%, with some it's less even than 10%, um, that unites us. And why do we need to be apart? Why can't we sit down as grown adults and talk to each other? So it started to be a call, really, in the 20th century, and a lot of groups arose, um, trying to get the Christian movements to come together and talk. And you can see in the beginning, you have the World Missionary Conference, you have the Life and Work movement, you have Faith and Order, all of these branches from all of the Christian world. Um, and of course, it didn't go very well in the beginning. It got rejected by the Catholic Church as a heresy. It was rejected by a lot of Orthodox as a heresy. But really, after, say, some 50, 60 years, it got more and more accepted, and the reason for it got more understood by the churches. Nobody was trying to mash everybody together, and you can ignore that somebody over there is believing something erroneous. No, they were actually trying to sit down and talk about this, to come to a conclusion. What can we do? How does it look? Are we friends? Like, do we really need to be separate? And that's the background for the whole thing. And to the question, and what is ecumenism? A word stems from the Greek oikumene, and can be roughly translated into the whole inhabited world. Both root words are, or the root words are oikos, which means house or household, and menien or menu, which means to dwell in or to live in. Um, and then you can ask, to dwell, to live, what house? Well, the house of God, which is the church, of course, in Christian theology. And who are the dwellers? Then all Christians, all Christians. And for the ecumenical moment, then, uh, this really is the key. Like this all Christians in the house of God. And ecumenism, for that reason, has always summarized itself as a spirit-led movement towards full union, or the restoration of full visible union among all baptized Christians. Um, and we are pushing this goal with prayer first and foremost. It's not by our own efforts. We're trying to involve God as much as we can, but also through dialogue, renewal, and charity. You can't really do much without charity. And seeking the truth together instead of seeking the truth apart from each other. That's really what ecumenism is striving for today. And as I said before, 1900 years without ecumenism. We didn't really succeed much, but after the 1960s and towards the 70s, after the Second Vatican Council, you see, especially in the Catholic Church, a lot of change towards ecumenism. And in these 70 years, 60 to 70 years that we have been involved in ecumenism, you can see so much progress, that you can't find in those 1900 years from before. You have the excommunication between the Catholic and the Orthodox lifted 1 year after the ecumenism started. In 99, you have the Lutheran and the Catholic disagreement about justification also solved to a big extent. There's still some ifs and buts, yeah, but the big whole is actually solved now. You have the Anglican churches and the dialogue in ARCIC, ARCAC, where the Anglicans had actually said, it's not too long ago, I would say about 10 years, that we can actually imagine going back under the authority of the Pope, which that's what drove us away as well from each other, which is just significant. And this we have achieved in less than 100 years. So yeah, I get a lot of critics from friends and priests about ecumenism. But look at the results and think about what Jesus said, that you will recognize a fruit or a tree by its fruits. And I think the fruits of ecumenism has been very successful so far.
You mentioned the uh, translation of the word ecumenism. And as well as you mentioned some of the similarities the Jewish faith and the Christian faith have. So, do you think that the dialogue between Christians and Jews can be called ecumenical or just interfaith?
Neither really, but at the same time both. The Christian and Jewish dialogue for a long time was counted to the ecumenical department. And some of the ecumenical movements that I mentioned in the beginning, or before, they also involve Judaism in ecumenism because it's such a special religion to Christianity. We wouldn't exist without it. It's very, every Christian knows that. We had a long time in our history where we tried to deny that Jesus was actually um, Jewish. And I think it's the late 1700s or something like that, or maybe 1800s. I'm kind of mistaken there. We discovered that Jesus was Jewish. And this is so dumb for us today. Of course he's Jewish. He was born in Israel to a Jewish mother, and you know, uh, but no, he was thought to be Greek for a long time. And since the Second Vatican Council, however, when it comes to Catholic-Jewish relations, I think that the Jewish-Christian dialogue has been counted more towards interreligious dialogue. Um, and in many departments of the Catholic Church, it's put into religious dialogue. Some, however, like my department in Linz, is still counted as three things. It's ecumenism, it's Judaism, and interreligious dialogue. So Judaism stands alone there, and really it depends on, I think, if you think that ecumenism should just be as the later definitions with baptized Christians, or if you think that we can go back even long further than that to our roots, then of course you can count Judaism towards ecumenism. But if you rather view Judaism as a completely separate religion, which I know a lot of people do as well, yeah, then have it as interreligious dialogue. None of them are bad, I would say. But most importantly, why don't we ask the Jewish people themselves, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in-house or do you want to be with the other religions together? Um, I think maybe some would ask both because it's, we love the other religions too, and being in that dialogue. I've heard that from some Jewish friends. And I've heard others say, no, I mean, I can also see myself in ecumenism because, as you said, Christianity was a Jewish movement from the beginning. So, but that's all my opinion, and I think the best solution for that would be to ask the people themselves, where do you fit better?
You mentioned the Christian-Jewish dialogue and the beginning of it. So, since 1948, following the World War II, the Holocaust, and the establishment of the State of Israel, numerous joint declarations have emerged from participants in Jewish-Christian conferences, affirming common principles for building new relations between representatives of the two religions, condemning anti-Semitism, recognizing Judaism's intrinsic value and self-sufficiency, and calling for mutual understanding. Numerous documents of historical significance concerning relations with Jews have been adopted by the Catholic and mainline Protestant churches. You're an active participant in interfaith dialogue in Linz and in Austria in general. Can you talk a little bit more about this? What forms does interreligious dialogue and cooperation take today?
Yeah, sure. So, as I mentioned again, from the Catholic perspective now, since the Second Vatican Council, and especially since the document Nostra Aetate, which is the document towards the other religions, a lot has happened and changed, and we have opened our minds significantly in the Catholic Church towards the other religions. And what's so beautiful about this document, it's really, uh, as I said, the first church document that opens itself towards the other world religions and shares the Catholic position in it, like how we view you as other religions, as I say. So Nostra Aetate, when talking about Judaism, for example, um, also goes to all condemn all types of hatred towards Judaism, because that's our stance on it, and persecution against Jews. And it condemns racism and mistreating of every religion, really. And since several documents as well between the Catholic Church and the Jewish the Jewish congregation, or the joint dialogue that we have, the Jewish Catholic dialogue, I think it's called. We have released several documents as well, um, together with the Jews, on how we stand theologically towards the Jewish people and the Jewish faith. And one of them, which I find the most interesting, is a document that was released 2015 called "The Gifts and the Calling of God Are Irrevocable." Um, and this document by the Vatican Commission for Religious Relation with the Jews, that's what it's called. Now it came back to me. Is really trying to explain how the Jewish people are still, by some way, shape, or form, being led by God in the covenant that they made with Him. Um, and that, I think, it's an extremely fascinating thing. No other religion really has that in the Catholic Church. We are very harsh towards the other religions, some people say, but Judaism holds this special place for us, um, saying that the calling and the covenant still stands, means that there's dual covenantship, really, is what they're trying to do. And dual covenantship means that salvation can be found in that religion and also in this. So um, we have a special place in our heart and our theology for the Jewish people. And for that reason, we are trying to do as much as we can as well together with the Jews in Linz. We have joint dialogue, of course. We have a whole day dedicated towards Judaism called Tag des Judentums, where we come together, invite the people for an entire evening to speak and listen, of course, to specific topics related to Christianity and Judaism. Sometimes we explore the common roots that we have. Other times we talk about culture and how it is to be Jewish and Christian in Austria, where we share a country and a culture. Um, and sometimes, even as well, we look towards the future, seeing today how the Holocaust is being frowned upon by a lot of people, and how many people are starting to deny the Holocaust, a topic that is very very debated, and will be debated, I think, for the years to come, is how do we not forget the atrocities that happened in the Second World War? Because we need to remember history, that we do not repeat it. That is so important. So that is a topic as well that we are working together with the Jewish congregations to explore. And apart from that, of course, we have interreligious dialogue, our round table of religions, where the Jews, of course, are members, and the Muslims, and the Buddhists, and every other religion that choose to partake, where we sit together and talk about faith in general, and how our religions can coexist in this country. What we can do together to show people that we are peaceful and friendly with each other. We don't have to be at war, we don't have to hate each other. We can function as people in a society as well, and that's very important to show, because the media sometimes they really try to depict the other possibility, that we have to hate each other, we can't stand together, we can't stand each other. But that's not how it is. And we do every possibility as well that we have to invite the other religion into the Catholic calendar, so to speak, into the Catholic liturgical year. We take that as well. We have Saint Francis, the 4th of October, which is now more celebrated as the day of the earth, or the day of creation. Creation is something all religions have in common, because we all believe that, we were placed here by God, almost all, which is a very positive thing. And every other possibility that we have to invite the religions to our into our liturgical year, we try to do so, to show people a good example, to show people unity, and to really go against this culture of hatred that we have. And yeah, we have a lot of other examples as well. We have weeks of prayer, weeks of unity coming up, where, of course, everybody is invited. We are trying to show unity in prayer as well. We have Christian weeks of prayer and unity as well, where we also invite the other people from other faiths. And um, if we are, as a Catholic Church, invited toward other religious celebrations, we take them as well and come and visit. I was very busy during Ramadan, for example. I have been invited to several events in the synagogue, for example, and I always try to respond and to be there to show my support and my presence as well, that we can work together. We are friends. We are not enemies in any way. And yeah, that's a little bit how we work in Linz, or how dialogue functions as a whole. And in some places there's more, some places there's less, of course. But in general, since the Second Vatican Council, we really try to work with each other. We really try to at least live together peacefully. And that's really where the foundation lays today.
You mentioned different paths to God and its recognition. So I have a joke here is the one that we prepared for today. Two neighbors are fighting. They couldn't reach an agreement, so they took their case to the rabbi. The rabbi heard the first litigant's case, nodded his head, and said, "You're right. The second litigant then stated his case. The rabbi heard him out, nodded again, and said, "You're also right." The rabbi's wife, who's been standing by this whole time, was confused. She asked, "Well, how can they both be right?" The rabbi thought about this for a moment before responding, "Yes, darling, you're right too. As you mentioned, different religions have their own path to God. Perhaps, and you mentioned as well that the Catholic Church started acknowledging that there are many paths and many truths. Um, could you tell a little bit more and what do you think about this? And what about other religions? Maybe you could tell a little bit about that.
Um, yeah, so we have, in many ways, acknowledged, as you say, that there are paths and faith express different expressions of God, so to say. However, we are also very cautious still, and I think as early as or as late as the year 2000, a document called Dominus Jesus came out, warning against these sort of synchronistic paths and proclaiming that there are many truths and so on. Um, which sounds very harsh, which sounds very exclusive and all of that, but it's mostly a caution because we don't believe that there are salvific value in all religions equally, as to say. For example, how the ISIS or jihadis understand Islam, that you need to die or kill, and that will somehow bring you to God. We would reject that straight and say no. How the ancient Greeks would with their perverse and immoral gods believe that they could do anything in life, and as long as they fill their graves with gold and jewels, they will come to their version of heaven. Which also thinks, no, you have to actually try to be a good person in some way, shape, or form as well. Um, but what the Catholic Church would not reject in any way is that there are possibilities. Some say, "Dare we hope." The very prominent Bishop Robert Barron is very famous for this saying. And another very prominent Catholic theologian, an Austrian called Karl Rahner as well, had an idea of what he called um, anonymous Christians. Um, he said he went back to the Catholic position that there can be no salvation outside of the Catholic Church and tried to look at all the other religions, understanding, but how can that be? How can we be so exclusive? How can there be no other salvation? And he came to understand that God freely gives his grace wherever he so choose, to whomever he so choose, in or without the Catholic Church. And these people, if they choose to answer and operate in the grace of God, can also be saved. But since it is the Christian God who has given them the grace, they are saved in and through the Christian faith and through Jesus and through the Christian church and so on. And he dubbed these people then anonymous Christians, saying that there is only this one God, and this one God is the Christian God, and he has in all religions chose to give in his grace. And it is then through the good of each religion uh, that his grace is mostly visible and mostly operative, that helps them towards salvation. And the Catholic Church as well, since the Second Vatican Council, has really looked through other possibilities. And one a possibility that a lot of people are aware of is invincible ignorance, meaning, what is a person who doesn't know about God or is living under, false understanding of God? How is he gonna be rightly judged by God? How is he gonna stand on the day of judgment, if you so will? Um, and this is a very hard question for us for a long time to answer, but we are slowly starting to settle at invincible ignorance now, which means if we imagine the 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 Indian in the Amazon rainforest who has never met Christian missionaries or missionaries of any kind, any religion, and he believes in his way of life and his gods and his ancestors, whatever it may be. He lives his best life to his best understanding, trying to be as good as he possibly can. Is God gonna say on the day of judgment, well, you didn't know me? No, that's not a good and just God, and that's really creates complications for us in our understanding of God. And the same goes for, let's imagine a Swedish farmer in the north of Sweden, who has probably heard about his religion in school. His parents might have been Lutherans, and he went to school and heard that the Catholic Church is this other religion. It's wrong, as they told me, and he doesn't bother to dig in deeper in that. He has his job, he has his farm to take care of, but he lives his faith to the best of his understanding. Uh, what is God gonna tell him? No, you didn't bother enough, or you didn't look hard enough. He did the best with the facts that he got. I mean, was he supposed to mistrust his parents and his schools and his authorities? That's not how humans work, and that's really where this so-called invincible ignorance comes in. That there might be a chance, of course, and the possibility is actually really good as it looks. And um, as well as I mentioned with Jewish faith, it really stands apart. It's this dual covenant. And I have to mention here as well that not all Christians, not all Catholics agree with me on this, but it's stupid if we don't recognize that this is the prominent and main way of the Vatican, our highest authority. I mean, they release these documents. Yes, they're not magisterial in that way, but they are approved by the highest authority in the church. So it is the most prominent theological position in the Catholic Church as well.
Since canonical books don't always call for love for one's neighbor, especially if they are different, if they follow a different path to God, um, does this mean that we can, or should we, agree that modern people can recognize different value of different parts of the canonical books based on the value in interfaith peace and dialogue?
Yeah, I think we have to kind of put our differences aside if we want to live in a peaceful society. Um, there are, I know some religions have bigger problems with this than others, but at the end of the day, a person that wants violence will interpret any text violent, and a person who seeks peace will interpret a text peacefully. Um, and mostly we have conflicts in our three Abrahamic texts that are related to a very specific time and place, that are not today, that are not in our present society. You know, I think we have to realize the world we're living in today is not the same as back then. We have to realize that uh, are changing, and faith can adapt to the times that we are in, and it has to sometimes. And so times change, and when we can change our understanding, and I think understanding today that most people in this multicultural world that we are living in just want to live in peace. They just want to have the opportunity to do the best for their families, for their lives. They don't want to fight. They don't want to have persecution in any way. And when we realize that it's all just people here that want to coexist, that want to be left alone sometimes even with their religion, then we can also leave all these hostile conquering commandments and stuff that very that politicians very often like to use to justify their wars, to make them a religious wars, because they know then we get zealous, then we really put our effort into it when religion is backing this. But that's not the case. There's a time and a place, and that time and this place is not today for most people. Um, we can look towards what we have now, and we have to create a better society, because we cannot go on for another 50 years being hostile towards each other, fighting, trying to alienate our Muslim or our Jewish neighbors or Christian neighbors in other countries. It's not realistic. It's not the way of any God, I would say, and it's definitely not the way of such a modern and futuristic society as we live in today.
I would say that a very big part of interfaith dialogue and dialogue in general is respect. So, could you tell a little bit more? How do you, as a father, how do you teach about respect for other people, for others in your children? Could you go a little bit more about in that?
So when it comes to to my children, I try to teach them, of course, to not fight, solve things with words. Um, and mostly I see in other children that is really something that shocks them. Because most kids they're expect, to get a punch or whatever it is. And but then again, respect looks different for everybody. When I talk to my children, I really try to see what situation do we have here, what kind of person do we have here. Um, some people they just deserve a smack back, that's the truth, because they need to understand that they cannot treat people as bad as they are doing. While some people they just need to experience the love of God. I would say it's really based on the people in your surrounding and who you have to deal with. My kids they go to a Catholic kindergarten, but they still have many religions there, um, especially many Muslim friends. And I think it's fantastic what the the kindergartners are doing there when it comes to respect. That they always recognize that we are a Catholic kindergarten, but you are allowed to have your God, and this is also how it's presented for them in for example prayer and services and stuff like that, where we say God. If you want to say Allah, go ahead and do so, but it's all together. And I think that's the first step. You realize who do I have around me? Because these are the people that I need to respect first and foremost. Um, and I try to tell them, all that these people are all different, and but you have to treat them as you would, yourself want to be treated very often. And sometimes you have to be harsh towards them. Sometimes you have to be very loving towards them. Sometimes you have to endure a lot, and other times you should just put down your foot immediately. Um, and also try to keep it very local first and foremost. My children doesn't need to know about riots that are happening in our capital, or it doesn't need to know about the war between Israel and Iran, for example. It doesn't affect them. They're too small for these things, and it will be a dimension that they cannot understand. What they can understand is that there was a boy today who said something to me. Yeah, well, why? What would you like to have instead? How would you like this boy to be to you? Or, yeah, this girl keeps stealing my things. Yeah, well then take it back, show her that she cannot do this. And she will also learn to treat children with respect and others with respect. And uh, looking at people as individuals, I think that's what I'm trying to get at, and not as a religion or as a thief or as a generally troubled person. They are what they do, they display it, and how do we handle that? What we have right in front of us right here. Make our family good first, then our friends and family, then our community, and then our town, and then we spread from that. That's how I try to raise my children, and how I try to teach them with others.
That sounds like a very beautiful way to do this. I have a traditional question that I ask in most of my interviews. So here it is. If you had the opportunity to ask God one question directly, what would that question be?
Mm. Just one. Um, what he wants to change with me, what he would want me to change in my life, um, so that I could get better, that I could be more like him. That would be my one question, I think, because that's it's really the heart of the problem for every question, how am I doing as a person?
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and the great opportunity to learn from you and for answering all of the very personal and tricky questions.
Yeah, you're welcome, definitely. Thank you for having me, and it was really nice having a talk with you.
Thank you so much. Dear friends, thank you for watching my channel. Please react to the podcast, like, repost. All reactions are very welcome. See you soon on the podcast, Keeping the Faith.